What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege to not only be reviewing Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8, but I get to do it with the good sister. She is a woman of many talents, social media manager, AfterBuzz host, and a contributor to none other than BodySlam.net. She is the one, the only, Anissa Barr. Anissa, what's going on?
Thanks. That's a cool intro. I never had one of those intros before. Even when
It,
I hosted it after Buzz TV, I was just like, "Hey, this is me."
well, there's an authenticity to just being me. I gotta have to go into the boxing gimmicks and what have you.
Yeah,
Not as heralded as you after buzzers or the bodyslam.net crew. So
right.
I gotta,
Everyone's taking the AfterBuzz kit, so I love it.
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we're here. Obviously, Mania weekend.
Yeah,
There's a gaggle of shows that happen, in and around the whatever town that Mania uh, tends to set plane. To set aim and take fire to. Right, and this no different. Now, obviously, we had a couple of years of COVID, which shut everything down. We had a COVID mania. We actually had a blood sport that was filmed just in a back alley, what have you. I believe that was
heck
Bloodsport
yeah.
6. Yeah, Bloodsport 6. Bloodsport 7, we were lucky enough to have it in LA. You and I were both in attendance, which was amazing. Which
Yes.
some of the seeds were actually sown at 7 to kind of go into 8. But in overall, what did you think about this? This was a little bit different than the rest of the fair in Mania weekend, and even just in the GCW kind of bubble.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea when it comes to seeing what other talented wrestlers can do. Obviously, they are talented in professional wrestling, but to see a different side of wrestlers and performers who are very athletic, are in the scene, what else can they do? Not only to their body, contribute to their mind. And when they're in these type of matches, what other talents can they bring in? Because there's no ropes, obviously. But overall, I think this is a new way to kind of bring in a different aspect to wrestling fans who some are probably MMA fans, some are probably not, and not really don't know anything about MMA and are watching this and seeing how kind of cool it is. But overall, I think that Josh Barnett is doing a fabulous job. He's making this Bloodsport is skyrocketing. It came out of nowhere, in my opinion. I didn't know about it until he announced John Moxley, and of course, I'm a Moxley fan forever. And when you bring in guys who have big names like Moxley or anybody else in the world, people are going to tune in. And whatever Josh Barnett is doing, I think he's doing it correct, because this was a great show. 2 hours, but it was wonderful.
Absolutely. And especially when we have like 3 hour Raws, 2 hour SmackDown, a 90-minute NXT, give or take. There's a lot of wrestling to consume just of one company, right? So this one, being so different and kind of separating yourself out from the rest of the pack. Um, it was a breezy 2 hours and 27 minutes, give or take, 30-second here or what have you, and it was all
Right.
killer no filler. Sometimes there's intermissions at local shows, GCW. They were just one match
Yeah.
after the other, and one of the many things that I liked about it, every competitor on the card essentially had a bit of a background in some sort of combat sports. So it just added to the legitimacy, and it starts off Masha Slamovic against Janae Kai, which, my goodness, these two can throw down. Kai coming from a Muay Thai, striking discipline, Masha Slamovic, Russian wrestler, and out of the Northeast. So it's this wrestler on top of wrestler on top of wrestler is Masha
Right.
Slamovic. And I love this kind of takes where, you're seeing legit wrestlers, and it's not just reserved just for males. It's females as well. The Billy Robinson, Carl Gotch, Josh Barnett, the lineage of that, even Antonio Inoki, is flowing through one Shayna Baszler, and it doesn't stop because we have Masha Slamovic, who has trained in Gleason's gym and done the gritty grappling, and here she is against a striker of Janae Kai.
Right. I thought this them two were great. I think these two ladies are gonna be freaking stars in the near future. I really have to give props to Josh Barnett for bringing in having four women compete for Bloodsport. I think there's great opportunities for women doing Bloodsport. I think, and I hope next year we see more women. Hey, let me do a 2-night Bloodsport. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there's so many talent out there, both male, female, and trans. The trans community, LGBT community. There's so many talented performers that I think that there should be a part 1 and part 2 next year, hopefully, for Bloodsport, because I want to see certain people, in Bloodsport. I want to see if other people, other wrestlers are capable of doing blood. And I think I'm sure there will be other opportunities for more people to come in for Bloodsport. But overall, I think these two women really killed it. I think they dominated with the first match, and it's something that I feel like not a lot of people have seen just yet. I mean, we see Marina Shriver and Zeta Zhang. This is their second time going at it with each other, but it's always good fresh air to see other women compete.
Absolutely, and both Slamovic and Janae Kai. Janae Kai, I don't believe she competed in the LA Bloodsport. I know she was there, but Masha Slamovic was definitely on Bloodsport 7. Janae Kai, I believe she was a part of 6. And then, in terms of like the inclusion of everyone, right? The first incarnation of Bloodsport, I guess pre-pandemic, Josh actually wanted to have a queen. I can't remember the terminology, but it was like something to the effect of a Queen of Bloodsport championship, which was actually won by Lindsay Snow, the American kaiju out of Florida. But unfortunately, she got injured. Pandemic happened, so I would like nothing more, especially now that there's a litany of competitors to go against, for her to kind of come back with her championship, a la CM Punk, right? Like you can crown a interim title challenger or champion while I'm gone, but that is my title and I'm going to defend it, and whoever you put in front of me I will demolish, which I think that's the credo. But I mean, Masha Slamovic getting a submission win over Janae Kai, and it was quick, and it just shows you how quickly, when devious and honed tactics uh, could essentially end a match 1, 2, 3. And actually, it's KO or submission, so there's no pinfalls at all, which is another dynamic. You mentioned the no ropes, right? To basically force the competitors to engage rather than retreat. But yes, we basically had the submission right off the bat. Really, really badass match. So that was Janae Kai and Masha Slamovic. Then we had Yuya against Ninja Mac. This one was fun, right? Because Ninja Mac, we weren't used to seeing him in this kind of environment, right? Where Ninja Mac, he is a maybe a vertically challenged fellow, right? But he is somebody that the crowd gets behind in ways that remind me almost of Spike Dudley back in the day, right? The little engine that could type deal. He is the proverbial underdog, right? And he actually took off the mask. He was Sin Cara in this deal where he was faceless, right? He basically showed his face to the world, to the GCW audience, which he's done before. He's been unmasked before, but this is a different presentation where he just It's not that he started off with the mask and took it off. No, he takes it off. He's Ninja Mac, but he's going out and facing a tough competitor in Yuya. I love the fact, and I didn't know this about Ninja Mac, and shout out to the commentary team for this, but I didn't know that Ninja Mac was a part of Cirque du Soleil, which makes so much sense now. And he's incorporated that into a fight style. He ended up actually knocking out Yuya with a amazing, almost capoeira esque kick to the head. Yuya was out. But your thoughts?
Screen, like those characters who does spots where you just don't doing. He does. And I think uh, is gonna start to and I like Ninja Mac. You at the end of the day, you're gonna see a match or a really great uh, and he's well was a spinning kick to the head. And what he didn't even have shoes on; it was just his bare feet, right?
Right, right. So that's bone
So
on bone.
how crazy! How
Yes.
crazy is that?
Yeah, it was
So
absolutely phenomenal. And again, they say that I can't remember the euphemism. It's something to the effect of a horse of a different name, something or other, what have you. But what I'm trying to say is Ninja Mac, right? Who is a perennial high flyer, death match wrestler, and what have you, showing that he had the goods, right? I don't think there was any question about Yuya. Yuya has a background in martial arts. I believe takes jujitsu and what have you. But Ninja Mac is, especially to a GCW audience, which this was absolutely a GCW audience, right? I don't think we'd seen that in him, right? And that was so
right,
surprising. We always knew that he could get it done, between the ropes, right? But now he's in a world where the ropes do not exist and don't come into play, and here he is shining. And I mean, if you're Josh Barnett, you got to book Ninja Mac, in Bloodsport 9. That's it, right? It's a
right.
no-brainer. And I think also in terms of the lower weight classes, because we saw a lot of heavyweights, even in like Biff Busick and Moxley, who aren't big guys in like a Vince McMahon ideology or what have you, but they're still 5'11", 5'10", 6 foot, right? Jonah and Josh Barnett. Those are two big boys, right, with the legendary credentials behind them, right? But these are almost like a MMA flyweight fight, 125 pounders that they can show they can bang just as well as some of the bigger competitors on the same card, which I thought was amazing. This was, to me, was a perfect and flawless match.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I have to agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. We're kind of bringing back SoCal because this happened in Texas, but we had Bad Dude Tito and Royce Isaacs. Bad Dude Tito and Royce Isaacs were on this very show prior to the last Bloodsport, I believe it was Bloodsport 7. And I didn't know. I mean, Bad Dude Tito to me is one of he's definitely a character, right? But I didn't
Mhm.
look at him as like he almost spoke to me in a previous incarnation, almost like a skate punk, like the Dogtown and Z Boys esque, persona, right? Him and Scum and all of that, and then he became a Wolf Zaddy, right? But even this, like Bad Dude Tito in Bloodsport, almost reminds me of a pre Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. Like the
Mhm.
singlet, the body type, and the legit grappling credentials that he's picked up due to his jiu-jitsu prowess. It's amazing. And then Royce Isaacs, I call him Royce because I'm thinking MMA, Brazilian, Portuguese. But Royce Isaacs, man, he is a guy who has shown himself to the New Japan strong audiences, the SoCal, audiences. And I think this was an amazing uh, showing for both gentlemen
Mhm.
who might not, the audience might not be familiar with if they're not here in Southern California, that you don't know these two. But this was an amazing showing by two big, big, beefy dudes who knew how to get it done when the bell rang.
Yeah, 100%. I think the SoCal scene doesn't get their doesn't get recognized enough, and how much talent Southern California really has. And I'm grateful that we have, GCW does fly out, and other, Prestige flies out to showcase Southern California talent, because for a long time we it's rare to have a SoCal talent be a top star, or be shined. And no discredit to all the SoCal talent that are they're all, in my opinion, all of them are stars. I support all of them, because in my opinion, we have, of course, I'm going to backtrack. We have the Bucks are from SoCal. We have Scorpio Sky from SoCal. We have Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, that are from SoCal. You know, Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, and so many more. But that list, and then of course Brody King. So we can't forget him, and Tyler Bateman. So there's so many people, professional wrestlers that are from Southern California, that now we are I'm now that we are seeing more talent, people from the West Coast and from Southern California getting that recognition. And I really want to thank Josh Barnett for bringing the talent that Southern California has to offer, because I feel we are now getting that we're now getting
That
the
recognition for
recognition
sure.
that, in my opinion, they deserve. Because for the longest time, you see people from the East Coast and the Midwest, and now I think with having Bad Dude Tito and Royce Isaacs, who are wonderful people, I like that the fact that he put them together, because they know how to work together. They know each other's styles. They've been in the ring before, etc. And to see how, and just to showcase the talent that both of them have, not because of where they're from, but because they are going to be future stars, and how much talent they have, and how much they've worked hard too. You can't forget that. Like they've worked really, really hard to be in this position where they are, and I think that they deserve it. And I hope that when the next Bloodsport, I'm hoping that's around Double or Nothing in May, Bloodsport 9. I hope we get to see much, more talent like them soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you're probably, I'm going to be a broken record. Like, I love this finish. I love this finish. I love this finish.
No, yeah.
But this is kind of what we get into, which is completely different than 70 super kicks or DDTs in one match, right?
Mhm.
In theory, if Jake the Snake Roberts can drop Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's head and crack it on the floor of the Boston Gardens with one DDT, I mean, you just need one, right? So the finishing
Yeah.
sequence in this, right, is literally Isaacs delivers a German suplex. Tito rolls through, locks in a knee bar. Royce Isaacs hits a T-bone suplex, then a dragon sleeper, and then works around the back of the leg of Isaacs. Isaacs rolls through and locks Bad Dude Tito in a guillotine submission. Like that right there. For me, who are, might be trying to introduce a friend that might not be initiated on
Right.
how the independent scene of wrestling works, right? And
Right.
they're just like, oh, I don't like the WWE, and that's why I don't watch. I can just plug them in, don't tell them whatever, just fire up the TV, fire up the Fight TV app, show them this, and this is it. This was, it gets said, right? A lot, oftentimes in Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bombs, but this is poetry in motion. I thought it
Mhm.
was. It was so
Right.
static.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. But also, like when you said you bring friends who don't, and all that stuff. All my friends are wrestling fans, so I don't have any friends who are not wrestling fans. So I can't understand that part. But I do agree. That these two really really showcase their talents at Bloodsport, and I hope a lot of people see that and they get offers. I know Royce Isaacs, and Badu Tito, they're doing New Japan Strong, which is awesome. They're freaking wonderful at doing that. And I really hope that in the near future they succeed. They're going to be succeeding in this business, and guarantee they're going to be top guys.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we forget, Royce Isaac is a former NWA tag team champion, so getting a little bit of recognition outside of just the SoCal, Southern California
Right.
scene. So it's like your favorite band, right? You're like, I like that band, and then you see somebody who might not like that genre of music, and you see them rocking the shirt and go like, where did we all go wrong? But in this case,
Mm-hmm.
right, in Tito and Isaacs and a lot of the SoCal guys and girls that are starting to venture off, and it could be you could be an East Coast, and your an
Right.
East Coast talent comes out here, or Pacific Northwest, talent comes out here. We're seeing Defy kind of make their claim of the Southern California market and what have you. I think it's amazing that you get to essentially go on an excursion, kind of borrowing the ideology of New Japan, right? But once
Right.
you start doing your young lion training, you basically go on an excursion, learn different styles, and then you come back with all of the skills encompassed to essentially go on arguably one of the biggest runs of your career.
Right.
See?
100%.
Yeah. So this one was shocking to me because I really didn't know much of Slade. But this was Slade versus Alex Coughlin. Coughlin, familiar with, been on the show. This is a guy who's out of the New Japan LA dojo. Um, Jesus, like those guys that are coming out of the LA dojo again, in terms of the prominence of the Southern California scene, I would say just as much as any given promotion, like a PWG or any of the Southern California, we're seeing Prestige come in, like you said, GCW come in. I think the LA dojo, right, with what they're producing in their first class,
Mhm.
just amazing, amazing talent. And Coughlin, I was talking to my buddy Eddie Torres the other day from the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, Coughlin looks like Dan Severed. He looks like, like an evil villain from a 1980s or 1990s kind of punch and kick game, like a Streets of Rage or what have you." And he deadlifts everything. There is a credibility that comes in Alex Conflin that I really not, and I don't want to dissuade anyone else of the current scene or whatever, but there's some people just have it, right, and you don't know
Right.
what that it is. You can't teach that it, whatever. Even even the move set, right? You can do a move and make it mean something, or you could do that same move 1,000 times and not mean anything.
Mhm.
Alex Coughlin is a guy that just strikes me as someone who does all of the little nuances right. The way that he comes to the ring, especially in this environment of Bloodsport, where it is a fight. They were announcing fight one, fight two, fight three, and Alex Coughlin is that guy that you would, the Patrick Swayze character in Roadhouse, right? The
I'm
badass,
very young. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, like that badass at the end of the bar, that type of presentation, but then
Right.
to his credit, Slade did too, and
Yeah.
Slade, I wouldn't want to run into Slade in a dark alley. Like that dude might mess up my whole grill. Like
I don't think I want to walk into an alley with any of these competitors that are on Bloodsport. You know what I mean? Like, I'll watch, mind my business. I'll watch, I'll record.
yeah,
But
100%. That'll be your contribution to World Star, right?
or wrestling some, I don't know,
Yeah,
uh, I
100.
don't know those wrestling things that, do fun stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. But in this one, a beautiful finish, right? Where the ending sequence is, Coughlin, they're just basically forearming each other, right? And Slade grabs the throat of Coughlin. Coughlin's on the mat, right? And they're just kind of there comes a time, right, where you meet your match, right, and everything that you had in your arsenal, you throw it at that person, and that person is still standing there, and it can disorient you. That's to what I feel like the Undertaker did. You punch him, punch him, punch him, and he just looks at you, and it's just like, what the hell, right? And that stalemate, it was a nice crescendo to the action that was had in between Slade and Confluent, right? And they're center of the ring, just duking it out, right? And then what ends up happening is Coughlin pops out a deadlift German suplex, right? And then for a finish, making sure that again, I'm not letting this guy get away, right? I just deadlifted him, like dead weight, lifted him into a German suplex. I'm not going to waste any time, and slaps in a rear naked choke. And Slade tries to fight it off, and that is the fighting spirit of Slade. Again, I didn't know much about Slade prior to going into this, but like Slade proved himself to me to be a badass. Like he's a badass, and he's willing to go out on a shield, right? Rather than try to save face on like, oh, that was a BS call or whatever. Like I wasn't really out, whatever. He could have tapped. And he was like almost in a Mick Foley esque kind of um, uh, uh, expression of what he was feeling inside. Like he seemed to relish in the pain, right? Almost a smile. And that's the last thing that you see before he goes out. And he goes out so quickly and suddenly. And that just shows when, something is basically putting pressure on your jugular vein. It's night, night. It happens to the extent
Right.
where, when the referee called for the bell, right? Slade gets up and goes, wait, we're still fighting, right? Because that's how knockouts happen. That's when you go night night unceremoniously. Those are the
It's
things that
donezo.
happen. Yeah, that's it.
Like you're done. Yeah. I thought that I like that Josh Barnett puts certain people in these type of matches. Obviously I don't know the like what he actually does obviously backstage. Does he pick the guys to fight or do the or he asks them who do you want to be in the match with? But I think with Josh Barnett, he really, really is in my opinion, I think he's a genius when it comes to this type of stuff because he's having people fight in this type of style who either probably never been in the ring before or have but are doing it in a different type of way. And I think that overall this was a great match. Sometimes I wish it would have turned out a little bit different, but I liked how it did go out because now he's realizing, wait a minute, but we were still going. And then that brings in a story. It shows a story and it elevates that story into probably the next Bloodsport. So that's the beauty of this type of nature when it comes to either professional wrestling or Bloodsport, is that at the end of the day, they're showing a story. And that story can end up at the next Bloodsport, or it could just be like, you know what? This is the end of the story. We're going to move on to the next. So that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because there is a match on this card, and we'll definitely get to that, where that essentially we had a overrun storyline come over from Bloodsport 7 here in LA to Bloodsport 8, but we'll definitely get to that. Shane Husky says, "This is Shade, Adam, Anissa, what's up? Hello." Our
Hello.
yes, our compatriot at bodyslam.net and the Roundtable Pro Wrestling Podcast that can be found right on the channels in which you are viewing this. So shout out to bodyslam.net and the rest of the crew there.
Heck
Uh, yes, yes. Now, man, all killer, no filler. This one I was very intrigued, right? Because we
yeah.
had Simon Gotch, right? Formerly of the Vaudevillains, former NXT Tag Team Champion. He is a grappling aficionado, right? In his time away from the WWE, he's essentially, immersed himself in jujitsu and catch wrestling, training with the likes of Harry Smith, Josh Barnett, a litany of, I think even Dave Bautista in interactions and what have you. So this is a guy who can really get it done. And again, this is where, like, you didn't see money in Simon Gotch. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but again, I'm not in Stanford, so that it is what it is. For better or for worse, it is what it is. But he goes against another recently released talent, and I do mean that in the best sense of the word, every instance of the word. But John Hennigan. I don't care if you call him Johnny Bloodsport, Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, what have you. He is creatively, physically, one of the biggest and most innovative performers of the last, I'd say, 50 years in Hennigan. But one thing that I haven't seen, we've seen Hennigan, basically push the boundaries of what a human body can do, right? The way that he trains himself in parkour and lifting weights, but in an unconventional way, right? But what does that equate to in Bloodsport? And we saw right off the bat where he comes out with a fight banner and MMA style shorts, and
Mm-hmm.
he's ready to go. And Hennigan has been involved in the pro wrestling game to the highest levels for arguably about 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And this wasn't something that I saw in him, right? This presentation, he's done it all, right? But I've never seen him in this type of environment, which was intriguing. Um, Man, so before we really get into it, like, when you saw Gotch Hennigan, what were you thinking?
Well, first of all, I think John is very talented in many ways. He does have that gymnastics background, so I think that really helped him with this type of match. And a lot of people don't really like know that he does. He has a gymnastics background, um, but I feel like with John, he's always looking for something new and fresh. I mean, he has his own movie. He did that and excelled in that. And then now, he went to Lucha Underground. He excelled what Lucha Underground was trying to do and make it into a TV show, like a wrestling TV show. And we got that aspect of John Morris or John Hennigan. And now we're seeing him doing Bloodsport. And I think this is a way to show, okay, I've done a lot of things in my career. Anybody else can do the same thing if they want to do it or believe in it. And I would like to see uh, Hennigan more on Bloodsport. I want to see him. See, who else can he, do this with, or whoever? Because, we do got formerly known as Simon Gotch on, and he is a wrestler as well. And I feel like that really helped in a way. But I kind of want to see, John fight someone like Tito. Some a little bit bigger. I mean, not saying John isn't a big guy, but you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's wild because I guess we could talk about the nuances of the match, but I think the long-term ramifications of the match, I think for me, much like you, what could we do? Like this is like the jumping, the launching pad for John Hennigan in Bloodsport, right? To me, after seeing him basically beat Simon Gotch with Simon Gotch's, his credentials in terms of the grappling arts, right?
Right.
Um, that the fact that Hennigan beats him by submission, not by KO, because he could have just as easily, as hit one of those. The moves, almost a parkour esque move or a capoeira esque move, much like Ninja Mac on earlier on the show, right? He could have
Right.
done that. The fact that he does it by submission, that means there's a whole nother gaggle of opportunities in terms of in-ring performer, ways that he can express himself, in movies. Like I actually want to see John Hennigan against Minoru Suzuki. That's a match
No,
after
that'd be good.
I'm in. I'm
Yeah,
sign me
I'm
up.
into. I'm
Sign me
into.
up. So again, this was a cross arm breaker, I believe it was, that Hennigan gets Gotchin, and it was again just poetry in motion, and these two have a chemistry. They maybe we're not going to see it in Bloodsport, right? But they have a
Mhm.
chemistry with each other that I definitely want. If I'm a promoter, right, an independent wrestling promoter anywhere in the contiguous United States and even Alaska and Hawaii, I'm like,
Mhm.
seeing this, I'm gonna book these two.
Yeah,
Almost,
if you could afford them.
yeah, that's true too. Okay, so theoretically, if you're in Florida or maybe Southern California, right, where maybe one or both of them might reside, I'd pay out, maybe a portion of the tax return to get those
Right.
guys on my card, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so again, a great match, both Gotch and Hennigan. And again, I'm really proud. I'm always proud of Gotch and what he's been able to do away from the WWE. His body is better. His expression is better. The stuff that he was doing or that does in MLW is amazing. The character work that he's a creative type in his own right. And to see these two in this environment, I just it makes it pretty easy for Barnett, who is handpicking each and every person on the card because he Josh Barnett doesn't lend his name to anything that he doesn't believe in. So I totally see why uh, Josh booked this match as a former UFC champion, right? He
Mm,
knew what it could do to the crowd, and it just exceeded my expectations watching at home. I could only imagine what it must be there for somebody that watched it live at the GCW Collective.
right, right.
Yes. So as we move on, right, we have remember we were alluding to long-term storytelling in terms of Bloodsport. Well, we definitely had it here because we had one quarter of the four horsewomen of MMA, Marina Shafir,
Mhm.
the problem Shafir, going up against Zeta Zhang. Now, both of these athletes had a bit of history down in NXT where they were signed to developmental. Zeta Zhang was on the show prior to Bloodsport 8. And she's just like, I don't know what the hell it is. It seems like she has a problem with me, which, that gives length to Marina's moniker of the problem, right? Not only is she a physical problem with you in the ring on the mats, but she is a problem, and you just don't want to be on her bad side. So, for whatever reason, Zeta Zhang found herself on the bad side. But I also think it was this because right after Marina's match at Bloodsport 7 here in LA at the Ukrainian Cultural Center,
Mhm.
um, Zeta Zhang comes out after her match, and she had a crazy match of the night contender with KZT, right? And that was,
Mhm.
almost a blood and guts affair for both competitors. And she comes out after Marina Shafir's match and goes like, I don't know what the heat is, you and me or whatever, but we're gonna settle it here. We're gonna settle it at Bloodsport, right? And
Right.
this is the situations that were had, in the kind of a build up to this match. For me, a lot of people don't know that Zeta Zhang actually was an undefeated mixed martial artist before coming into uh, pro wrestling, right? She
Mhm.
actually was training at Black House MMA, which is one of the elite gyms of in the world, but definitely in LA. As she gets the call for her WWE tryout, so she was training with a lot of legit MMA competition. She was legit, but again, Marina Shafir, Ronda Rousey's training partner since they were like 12, like, not even like middle school age. They've known each other. They
Mhm.
travel the world literally dumping people on their necks in terms of being world class judoka practitioners, right? So these are two women, but definitely athletes that can get
Mhm.
it done no matter where the fight goes, striking, grappling, and then in addition to this, we have a little bit of a hot streak. We have a little bit of tension, maybe a lot of tension between these two. So it just may, it made for a powder keg that was going to be lit during the collective at Bloodsport 8. What did you think about this match?
I thought it was great. I think Marina uh is gonna be like this the feet like I just feel like she is the star of Bloodsport, Marina. I think she's going to be like I don't want to compare her to anybody because that's not what I'm trying to do because she's talented in her own right. Um, but I feel like she's gonna be that top star for the females for Bloodsport, and I think with that background that she has, I think she deserves it because she is talented. She knows what she's doing. She's been doing this forever. And she does also have that a little bit of that wrestling background as well. So I hope we get to see her in a wrestling ring someday. But I think Bloodsport is where she belongs. Like that's her zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely.
whoever comes in, if Josh Barnett decides to have titles or whatever, I think Marina should be the first woman to win a title if he decides to do that. But overall, I think if you get in the ring with Marina or in the mat with Marina, she's gonna make you a star as well as she's gonna make herself a star.
No, 100%, 100%. Now, this match wasn't without its share of controversy because um, this was almost like a cornucopia of submissions, right? Where Marina, starts in on a leg lock, tries to get it in. She can't get it in full bore, so she, starts going towards the head, joint manipulations in terms of the arms and everything like that. And again, the rules at play at Bloodsport, there are no pins. It's just submissions and
Submission.
knockouts, right?
Mhm.
So, with that all being said, and this is kind of in the vein of mixed martial arts, right? You don't have to physically just tap, but if it's a verbal tap, right? Like a right? Because you can't tap if somebody's separating your shoulder. You can't tap if
Yeah.
somebody's breaking your bone, right? So a verbal tap. And this, I guess it was the overwhelming sense of the numerous submissions that Marina was placing on Zeta. That Zeta, there might have been something wrong there, verbal tap, and that gets it done. The referee, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, early stoppage" or what have you. Oh, that's Josh Barnett's girl. In the auspices of mixed martial arts and combat sports, that is it. You want to make sure that because a fighter is not going to tell you, "Oh, I quit." A warrior is not going to tell you they quit. So the role of the referee is to protect the person even from themselves, right? And I think this was a great call by the referee. But I mean, we had the verbal interaction with Zeta and Marina, Bloodsport 7. We had an actual match that again has a bit of controversy. I think we need,
And it's a story.
yes, absolutely. So I'm in for Bloodsport 9, Marina and Zeta, the war to settle the score. That's what I feel.
I 100% agree.
Yes. So now we have on paper it would look like a mismatch, but I think this was it, just in terms of skill set, this worked out absolutely great. But we had none other than J.R. Kratos, right, going up against Timothy Thatcher. And we talked a lot about SoCal, right, the SoCal independent wrestling scene. But these two, Thatcher being from Sacramento, J.R. Kratos also from up north, Northern
So that's
California.
NorCal. That's not
Yeah,
SoCal.
no, no, that's what I'm saying. Like these two were definitely NorCal represent because we talked a lot about SoCal, but this is where NorCal gets to show themselves just a bit on this particular card. So again, this is the Battle of the Bay Area, Thatcher and Kratos, right? And Thatcher, I want to say this is one of his uh, first matches or first fights since
Mhm.
leaving the WWE, right? So there was a lot of anticipation online to see what he can do, especially given what he was prior to signing to the WWE, as well as what he learned, right? The toolage of knowledge that he amassed while being there in WWE developmental NXT, whatever you want to call it. That's where he was, Winter Park, Florida, right?
Mhm.
So we were pretty intrigued to see what we were going to see out of Tim Thatcher. Now, J.R. Kratos, right? Kratos is one who is in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He's traveled the world over. And I think, in terms of um, is storyline threats, right? The way that Kratos won this match, it was a Superman punch to the ground of Thatcher. This was a back and forth affair. Timothy Thatcher showing all of it, the fighting spirit, the fight forever. Every incarnation that you or euphemism that you think in terms of Japanese strong style wrestling,
Yeah.
apply it to Timothy Thatcher's match here. This is exactly it. But it's also American strong style because he's he's a Californian, he's an American, so
But
it was really cool to see that. Now him taking on Kratos, who I mean, Kratos is a mountain. He's a mountain of a man. And
mhm.
I'm not even sure I see a neck. It's just a boulder. He's just mass, and every bit of his mass wants to mess you up, mess up your face, tear up your tendons, all of it.
Mhm.
But one thing that Kratos has been able to do is this like prone Superman punch, right? Where his opponent prone and he hits you with the Superman punch. I believe his Bloodsport debut might have been around Bloodsport 4 or 5. Not good with numbers, but it was definitely a previous incarnation of Bloodsport where he finishes his opponent the same way. And imagine, right? Take all your fandom of wrestling, everything, whatever. If you see a guy that size, you're already in um a horrible state where you're on the ground, incapacitated, right? And when you come to, you see this 280 plus pound person coming at you, rolling back his fists, and that thing is going to
Mhm.
come towards you, right? With all
Mhm.
of the velocity that his power can generate. Not a fun deal for Thatcher. And to me, the way that they're using J.R. Kratos' Superman punch, it almost reminds me of the build of the one wing angel. Like nobody kicks out of it until somebody kicks out of it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know if they mean it to be that way or what, but this is a nice little thing out of the back pocket of Kratos to pull out. And it also shows his agility. You're not expecting a man that size to move that quickly, but Kratos does it, and he was able to, you know, tit for tat, keep up with Thatcher, who you would think would be the smaller, quicker, faster. And that wasn't necessarily the case in every interaction.
Right. Right. And I mean, there was blood, so
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
If there's blood, you have my attention. I thought this was a overall great show. Can you remind me? Didn't J.R. Kratos was at the Ukraine Center for Bloodsport?
Yes. Yes, he
Yeah,
was.
and I think believe he got a big pop too
Yes. Yes, he did.
because I was sitting on the stage where I usually sit for GCW, and I remember him getting like a really big pop, and it was people that I've never seen before, and it was a different type of crowd. It was like, and it's not like it felt like it was just people because people. I think someone told me he's from Orange. He lives in Orange County, so a lot of folks from Orange County came to LA at the Ukraine Center to see him, and you could tell like he he really is talented, as well as he really brought a lot of people to showcase. Hey man, come see my show, come see my match. And I think that I like to see him more on Bloodsport. I think him fighting different people would be great for Bloodsport, and bring on the blood.
Yeah, let there be blood. There you
Yeah.
go. Absolutely. And the Thatcher, man, uh there isn't anything more that I could say to profess my love for Timothy Thatcher and the style that he represents, in this day and age is wrestling where a lot of it can be, I don't know. There might be a lot of flips. There might be a lot of things and what have you. But Thatcher, you can look at that guy and like, oh, well, that whatever he's doing, that might be real, and he's scary. So great
Mhm.
showing by both men. This is exactly what Bloodsport is about, and bringing the blood, right? The first sight of blood that we get to
Right.
see on this card, and it was absolutely apropos. And one would even say that it was poetic justice.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. So this one, I didn't know what to expect, right? But we had Yuya Umura, and Umura had an original opponent. I forgot who that was, but the original opponent uh, unfortunately doesn't get to compete at Bloodsport. I believe it was an injury, and forgive me for not remembering who it was, but I remember seeing on the Twitter feed Josh Barnett. He put out the War Master call of, "Hey, we need somebody to step in against Yuya. What do we got?" Right? I
Mhm.
don't think it was even 20 minutes, and he was like, "We're gonna announce who replaced Yuya's opponent," and it was Speedball Mike Bailey. For
Yeah.
me, this is the first time seeing Mike Bailey. Obviously, knew him from PWG and his exploits all around the world. Um, but this is where Speedball Mike Bailey is proficient in is Taekwondo, right? Which is
Mhm.
a striking discipline. He got to show this against arguably, mark my words, this is April 5th, 2022. Yuya Imura, he kind of reminds me of Tanahashi. He might be
Mhm.
in a Tanahashi s uh, you know uh, spot, really, 5 or 10 years from now, like the same
Mhm.
way that we saw uh, Tanahashi or Okada on their excursions here. There's
Right.
something about Yuya that just he reminds me. He even looks a bit of Tanahashi in his youth, right? But this one was an amazing affair, right? Where Bailey got to show every bit of that Taekwondo prowess that he brings into all of his matches. We saw kicks and punches and managing his distance and a flurry of forearms and bringing back. You had arm drags, and to me, I love a good arm drag. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was arguably one of the best, in my opinion, to do like a deep arm drag, right? And we don't see that too much anymore. But Bailey brings it back, finishes it off with a flurry of forearms, and Yuya finds a way to counter, and he
Mhm.
delivers his own forearms, right? Yuya essentially looks to set up an armbar. Bailey, yes, Taekwondo, but he has a little bit of submission defense, maybe even
Mhm.
more than a smattering of submission defense, because he figures out a way to get his hand underneath, right, and just get out, right, and they basically fall to the canvas because they were at a stalemate. Like, you have me on this hold, I have you on another, and you just kind of fall outside. Which, again, that's a whole nother rules of engagement that you don't necessarily take into account, right? Because you're used to maybe the ropes catching you, right? Where they're at a stalemate and they're trying to roll each other out, whatever, and they fall on the floor. It was a pretty nasty bump. I think somebody hit I want to say it was Yuya hit the back of his head against the concrete, and then Bailey right after him. I think he hits the hard part of the ring first, the ring apron, and then hits the ground first. It was nasty. And for lesser people, they would have said, nope, that's it. We're going to double KO or whatever. But I wouldn't have to, I would hate to have to go back uh, to Josh Barnett and the rest of the Bloodsport roster and go, oh, I just couldn't continue. That didn't look like that would be regarded very highly in that circle. So Yuya and Mike Bailey basically, battle, and it's actually Yuya that gets a cross arm breaker to make Sweetball Mike Bailey tap out. Um, I've seen a lot of Yuya. I like everything that I'm seeing about Yuya, but Mike Bailey again. This was a version of Mike Bailey, um, truer towards that Taekwondo black belt that he is.
Yeah, and I think this is a real treat for the fans who haven't seen Mike Bailey in a long time for circumstances with Mike Bailey, and to hear him being able to come back to the United States after a few, long time but short time. And I feel like Mike Bailey is a real treat to a lot of people who are able to see him for the first time in a long time, or never seen him before, and this is their first time witnessing him. And I think that Mike Bailey is a star in his own right, as well as Yuya is a star in his own right. And I think having these two go face each other really excelled their match for Bloodsport. I think I hope we get to see Mike Bailey again in Bloodsport. I'm curious to know if that does happen, who he will face. Because I know he faced it Ninja Mac at the GCW show at the Ukraine, the Ukraine Center, and that was gnarly. That was a gnarly match, but overall it was entertaining, and I think that overall these two really excelled what we saw today, or what we saw at Bloodsport.
Absolutely, absolutely. And after each and every match, right? We're kind of deep in this card, right? And like, how can I follow that? How can I follow that? How can I follow that? And Mike Bailey and Yuya are no exception to the rule. But how do they follow it? Oh, none other than Jonah against the namesake of Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, former IWGP, Metamoris, UFC heavyweight champion, the War Master, Josh Barnett. And again, I didn't know how this one was going to go.
Yeah.
Obviously, anybody who knows Josh Barnett in his catch wrestling, jiu-jitsu prowess, his MMA credentials that are a laundry list long, right? A honeydew list long. Um, it's crazy, right? But Jonah posed real competition. And I'm not saying that Barnett had never had real competition before, because at New Japan Strong here, I think in Riverside, not too long ago, last year, uh, he Josh Barnett basically faced a student in Alex Confluent, right? So Josh Barnett and Jonah, this was intriguing to me because there are few times that Josh Barnett is undersized, and this was one of them. Right now, Jonah might not be as tall as Barnett, and the combat sports credentials might not be as vast, but the sheer girth and what he was able to do with the girth, he reminded me almost of a Gary Albright or a Vader at sorts, of a
Hmm.
athletic big man that could literally get it done in the ring. I loved every bit of this, and again, you're not used to seeing Josh Barnett come from underneath, right, and have to fight his way out of particular situations. And this is what we saw with Jonah. Jonah is Jonah is a star. There's
Yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts in my mind. Obviously, that's what the reason. One of the many reasons why he was signed. One of the many reasons he became the NXT North American champion.
Mhm.
But I'm actually glad he didn't progress any further under that system, because what he got and what he's showing in his time away from Stanford, from Winter Park, is amazing. And would you have thought? I mean, if you're Jonah, would you have thought you would be getting in there with a former IWGP and UFC world champion and the youngest UFC heavyweight champion that there has been in Josh Barnett, a literal legend. Like we're really not too far in age, me and Barnett, but the things that he's accomplished in his years versus mine, I'm all like Barnett, right? Uh,
Right.
so this one was amazing. This was a David and Goliath struggle where, you know, anything that Barnett tried to do, everything that he has learned from Billy Robinson and Carl Gotch and Eric Paulson, everything that he's, found along the way, training with Harry Smith and Natalia and Shayna Baszler and Marina Shafir, Justman Duke, all of that, right? Chris Dickinson. There's the people that Barnett has trained with and who he has trained are again just as big as the accomplishments that he's attained in combat sports. But my goodness, Jonah figured out a way, and how crafty he is, because you could be a big guy, right, or big guy, big girl, and not know how to use your physical advantages to your advantage. But this is one thing that Jonah has done, and that's why I feel like Jonah could be one of the biggest stars of the next 20 years, right? Because he has an appeal, right? You are drawn to him. And it's not just his size. He's got charisma to boot. But what he showed, right? The amount of mental fortitude, right? To step up against a legend that is Josh Barnett and go like, no, motherfucker, like we're going, right? And figuring it out. To me, Jonah was one of Josh Barnett's biggest competitors in the literal and figurative sense.
Right, right. And I really want to like wonder like what was it about Jonah that Josh Barnett decided to have this match with? Is it the physique? Is it because he wants to go against somebody that size or wants to put somebody over, which Jonah is already over anyways, but also what was it behind, what was it, why did you pick Jonah? That's the question that I want to know, because is it just to see I want to prove myself better, or is it because I want to fight anybody and anyone who's available? But I think that this was an overall great match. Like you said, it was just like a David and Goliath situation, but at the same time I don't see it that way because Josh Barnett is has a lot of muscles and Jonah is a big guy. So I just think that this was great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not going to speak for Josh Barnett. Nobody should ever do
Right,
that other than him himself. But
right.
I what I do know, right, of Stu Hart, right, father of Brett and Owen and the rest of the Hart clan, right, the
Mhm.
patriarch of the Hart clan, where he was a catch wrestler in his own right, and anytime he would come to the Hart house or whatever, he starts sizing you up and hey, you look like a big rhino, and start trying to grapple you, right? And
Sure. I mean, I
if
don't know, but
right.
sure.
So, but that's the thing. Like, if you're on the mats of, jujitsu or catch wrestling or sambo or what have you, right? You're like, okay, if I've got a skill set, I want to apply this to anything and everyone that I can. I want to see if it works against people that are smaller than me, both, in terms of height and weight. But I also want to see if that works, against people that are bigger than me, vast, so again, I can't speak for Barnett, but I want to believe it's just testing the metal. All of the years that he spent under Inoki, under the years that he spent under Billy Robinson, learning his craft, right? Being a wrestler, pre-catch wrestling, right? Just a wrestler in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle, whatever, all of that. Like, what can I do to apply it? Because I'm not, you're not getting into fights at the bars, or whatever. So, what
Mhm.
better way than to showcase everything that has encompassed his career than this match, Jonah? And you saw all of the greatest hits. You saw, Josh Barnett's Muay Thai. You saw, knees and punches and clinches and back body drops. And the final stanza ended up being Josh Barnett figuring out a way to suplex Jonah.
Mhm.
God, it wasn't a T-bone suplex. It was like a underhook suplex. Jonah,
Mhm.
and use Jonah's momentum against him, which is jiu-jitsu 101, catch wrestling 101. Use your opponent's momentum. If you're outsized and outmatched, use their momentum against you, and that's what
Yeah.
Barnett did. And I believe it was the knockout that Barnett administered to Jonah. Actually, nope, it was a submission, right? A spinning. Yeah, that's another thing. Josh Barnett spinning heel kick. Barnett is 6'4", doing spinning heel kicks.
Anybody could do a spinning heel kick. You just gotta train.
I'm just yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
All right, I'm gonna start
If Ninja
slinging
Mac
some.
can do it,
This
Josh
is
Barnett
true.
can do it.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
this is facts. This is facts. There might be a little bit more girth to me
Right.
than Ninja Mac, but
I'd rather get hit by Ninja Mac than Josh Barnett because Josh Barnett is tall and is, has that type of background.
exactly, exactly. And now Jesse Duarte wants to know what is it about Bloodsport that you two like? Ladies
I
first.
like the blood. If I see blood, then I'm into it. Knock
Yeah,
somebody out, I'm into it. That's what I like about Bloodsport. Um, MMA, UFC's great and all, but I think Bloodsport shows it's different, obviously, because there's professional wrestlers doing this, and we get to see blood, which I like. Obviously, I'm a death match type of girl, and we get to see other talent when it comes to professional wrestling and what other wrestlers can do and excel their talent.
no, I love that. That was amazing. Now, for me, I think Bloodsport, right, and the way that Josh Barnett presents it, it's Anissa and I were talking off air, right? In terms of what I feel is the complete fighter, right? It's somebody that can strike, right? But then when you have a Taekwondo black belt or black belt, you're an avid world champion boxer, or even a novice that is just learning the ropes or whatever. But if you get taken down, what happens, right? Well,
Mhm.
grappling of some sort happens, right? To be able to finish somebody. Because if you, as a striker, get knocked to the
Mhm.
ground, guess what? 90% of your arsenal goes right out the window, right?
Yeah.
Even to defend, right? To drop your weight down and, sink in your knees so somebody doesn't take you down. That's a little bit of grappling defense. That's wrestling defense, right? So that means you have a little bit of grappling, right? So whether you call it, Greco-Roman, amateur, freestyle, catch wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, sambo, there's like West African arts, or the Eastern Indian grappling styles, Turkish oil wrestling. Don't care what you call it, you got to have something of that. And Eddie Bravo of 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu, he has the Eddie Bravo Invitational, where it's jiu-jitsu, right?
Mhm.
And they have 145-pound featherweights or whatever. Everybody, it's a 8-person tournament. But the evolution of that, right? How do you apply it? Because jujitsu can be nice and pretty and whatever, and but you don't account somebody's going to punch you in the head as you're doing these moves and everything like that. So Eddie Bravo devised the combat jujitsu, where
Mhm.
if you're down, right, and you're stalling on a move, you can open hand slap your opponent in jiu-jitsu,
Oh.
which is
Oh, wow.
right. To me, so when you go, jiu-jitsu or any grappling style into, what we now know as MMA, or boxing or Muay Thai, right? To me, just like combat jiu-jitsu is a part, yeah, like the middle part of the evolution, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, right? Especially when they take away the pins, it's in that evolutionary scale from a ground fighter, into a striking fighter, into a full blown mixed martial artist, Muay Thai artist, boxer, what have you. That is the linchpin, the middle part of the evolution of combat sports. So that's what I love about Bloodsport.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bloodsport is so fresh, and I feel like it's kind of fresh to the wrestling scene. But you see the audience, you see how many people bought those tickets. It's becoming very popular, and I think, and I don't know if it's because like Bloodsport, it's every few months or whatever, but people still buy tickets to see this. And
Mhm.
I'm curious to know if they're going to do it every time there's a big pay-per-view going on during a weekend, or just randomly decide to, hey, we're going to do Bloodsport, but it's going to be here. Or is he going to travel with Bloodsport? So which he kind of does, but
Yeah,
I mean, in a sense of, if he's is he going to take Bloodsport um everywhere that there's nothing, how GCW comes to
GCW, right?
California and it's like, hey, there's a weekend of GCW. I wonder if Bloodsport's going to do the same thing in the future, or just, hey, we're going to do it when pay-per-views are happening, because that's where a lot of people come in, they fly in, they want to see something new, something fresh, they get their tickets. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, no, 100%, and it showed himself. I think one of the first blood sports under the auspices of Josh Barnett was at the Showboat in New Jersey, and it has that
Mhm.
cool like. I just like the way that it looks, much like the Ukrainian Cultural Center. And shout out to GCW when they run the big towns.
Yes.
They know how to set an ambiance for a wrestling show,
Yes.
like better than
Yes. Yes, you have
any
to.
other promotion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think with GCW, it's like when they have the collective during, that weekend, there's a lot going on. You see different types of wrestlers from all around the world doing different type of styles of professional wrestling. You have For the Culture, you have Effie's Big Gay Brunch, and so much more. So I think that Bloodsport, I mean, I feel like Bloodsport is part of the GCW, like it's under the umbrella of the GCW in a way. But also, I would like Bloodsport to be like, I mean, I know it's its own thing, but kind of like, hey, we're gonna just take this to, I don't know, New Jersey,
Yeah,
come on in. But I like the fact that GCW is also behind them and helping them excel and succeed to what they want to become in this business.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. I
Right.
will basically add, if anything from the GCW Collective, when you look at all of the shows on, on the offering, right? Um, you got to think that Bloodsport might be one of the better suited events that could be spun out of just GCW in a collective show. If Josh Barnett wanted to do one, and he's super busy, so like we're not committing him to do this, but like if he wanted to do one every 3 months to create that big fight feel, right? MMA fighters, they basically fight, twice, maybe 3 times a year. So to create that feel, right? And especially
Mhm.
with the level of violence that is happening, and we're saying violence, we're seeing blood and guts, and you still got it. All of this is awesome. All of the chants that you're used to seeing in death match or high flying stuff and what have you, you're seeing and you're hearing in Bloodsport. So I would think if anybody, and this is no disrespect to any of the other offerings, but I could see like if Barnett wanted to have basically presented to a TV network, or if those things still exist or what have you, this could happen. Like this could be it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So a match that is the semi-main event, right? And I think it's one that you are looking forward to because it is one half of this card, or one half of this fight is one of your all-time favorite wrestling personalities, the AEW, the WWE former world champion, none other than John Moxley, takes on one Biff Busick.
Mhm.
Jesus Louises. I loved every bit of this match, but I want to get your deal because there might be a rant, but I think you might take care of it. But go ahead.
Well, I find it so interesting that there's a lot of people all of a sudden who are Moxley fans, which is great. But I've been saying this since the day I started AfterBuzz that Moxley is a star. And, I get a lot of people saying, he's Dean Ambrose, whatever you want to call him. And it's like, no, like you have to see where he came from. CZW, all that great stuff, Dragon Gate in 2008, and you see, as a fan, you see him as his career path from where he started to where he is now. And in my opinion, Jon Moxley is a deathmatch wrestler. And that's how I saw him when I first discovered him. He was doing CZW. And I think he is bringing what he is really good at to Bloodsport. I mean, he does what when he lived in Vegas, he did go to places, MMA places,
Yeah.
and trained and everything. And that's the beautiful thing about professional wrestling is that you can be a certain type of wrestler, but then transition into something else. And I think Jon has done that and has done that for a very long time. If you really watch his career and how he just comes from a guy who just looked very like a normal dude to now he's buff and huge and really toned out. And overall, Jon, no matter what match you see with Jon, 99% of it you're going to see blood. And that's why I look at him as he's a deathmatch wrestler. He's one of the goats of deathmatch wrestling. And I think people forget about that because of his style that he does today. And people have seen him with WWE. So when I see people cheer for it, I love it. I'm like, yes, he's finally getting that recognition he deserves for years. But at the same time, he should have gotten those cheers a long time ago, in
Yeah,
my opinion, a long freaking time ago.
you're not wrong. To me, especially him coming into what was then known as FCW, right? And there was rumblings that he was going to get into it with Mick Foley or William
Yeah,
Regal, and I was
I
chomping at
remember those.
right, and I
It
was
was a
just
time.
like, but he was that guy, right? In many ways, and this almost pertains to Biff Busick, this statement as well, in the fact that both Moxley and Busick almost feel like they're from a different age. Like
Yeah,
they feel like they were running around with the Funks and the Briscoes back in 1970 in Amarillo, and they were in and around the Hearts in 1970 some odd, what have you, or they were down in Florida with Abdullah and Eddie Graham or whatever. You could put these two in any decade of wrestling, and I think they prevail. They
yeah,
absolutely prevail. I in terms of the evolution, right? Of course, people need to get money, get that fucking bag, or what have you. But I actually, in the long scheme of what and who Jon Moxley is as a professional wrestler, I actually think a lot of the stuff that a lot of the momentum was lost by spending so much time in WWE, right? And yes, personally, he found his wife there. Who to say if they had met, if they both not be there at the same time? And Renee is one of my idols in terms of doing this, being an
right.
on-air performer. She's one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And I put her, up there with like
Sure.
Bobby Heenan, Gorilla
No, she's
Monsoon, Jim Ross.
wonderful.
She's
She's
amazing,
great.
right? Um, so of course, right? But like him in the Shield, like I didn't see Seth as the star. I didn't see Roman. I still don't see. Or I don't get Roman Reigns at all, and that's a whole nother story for another day. I'm not
Sure.
going to bore any of you guys with my triads on Roman Reigns. I'm not saying Joe Anoa'i. That's a guy who fucking beat leukemia, has wife and kid, kudos to Joe Anawahi, but Roman Reigns, that's a whole different thing. I always saw that as a vehicle to make Mox a star, but there was, I want to say, in and around that time of that Stone Cold Broken Skull sessions, that people's view of him within that company started to, they devalued him as a performer. They devalued him as a performer. And
I think because like he said in the Austin interview, Brock probably didn't want to do the certain things he wanted to do. And if you're gonna go into a match that has to do with a WWE death match style with WWE, that's his element. That's what he, I don't want to say that's what he knows because I don't personally know Moxley, but as a fan, I look at it as that's where he kind of came from. He came from the death match wrestling background. He knows how to perform in that style, and to see another performer not wanting to do it, it shows to me that that competitor is not ready to be part of that type of style, and maybe don't ever do it, I guess. But you see how Moxley elevated from leaving the company, showing up to AEW, and he's doing his thing. He's doing, and my thing is John Moxley can cut a promo no matter what. Like, no matter if he wants to sell me a box of ranch dressing and tell me how great this specific ranch dressing is and why it's the greatest ranch dressing of all time, he can excel with promos no matter what. And he doesn't need a writer to tell him that. As we can see on AEW, we can see that on Bloodsport when he talks. He knows what he's doing, he knows what he's saying, and at the end of the day, he's going to entertain the fans. He's going to entertain the fans, and he's going to make his opponent also look good as well. He's going to make his opponent look, he's going to put over his opponents. That's what he's going to do. Unless he really doesn't like you, then he's going to beat the crap out of you, and it is what it is. But what I really liked in this match was the outside of the ring a little bit. When they were outside of the ring, I like the suplex outside of the ring. I think it shows, I feel like that's what I feel what Bloodsport is about, is just to beat the crap out of your opponent, make them bleed, go outside the ring, do a little fun stuff outside of the ring, and go back in and start doing submissions. And I think everybody in Bloodsport really showed the potential that they have in this business, as well as the potential that they can excel in the future with Bloodsport. And I hope in the future Josh Barnett, just has some of the same people come back to Bloodsport, so we could get some more, so we can show, hey, that's a familiar face. Oh, that's somebody I know from Bloodsport, or new faces that we haven't seen, but put them into somebody that we all know, so, in a way, so they can show the talents of it.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and have even, obviously, kind of pull talent in from, whoever's, in the GCW kind of roster during whatever weekend they run, but also have its own separate roster that, Marina Shafir, Josh Barnett, Moxley or Biff Busick, or like, that
Yeah.
these guys and girls, and it's just factoring them, who are they going to fight, in this next
Yeah.
next Bloodsport, like,
And you have to give Biff Busick uh, props too.
hell
You
yes.
know, he is a talented individual, and he is a buff dude, and he can go and he can kick your ass as well. And I feel like this was great to see, to when he announced these two. I'm like, I was very invested, because these are two tough guys. These are two individuals that can beat the crap out of anybody. And I feel like when you have certain people in matches, they understand, and they have that connection in the ring. So I thought this match was great.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this one, Biff Music, not spoiling it for anybody. And guess what? Go ahead, pay the $20 on Fight TV. You can thank us later. We don't have promo codes for you. If you just love wrestling as hardcore as it can get, as deathmatch as it can get, well, not involving light tubes and barbed wire and everything. Obviously, that is a different art
That's a
in its
different, yeah.
yeah, a different art, different genre. But if you want the same kind of outcome without all of the gimmicks, Bloodsport is where it's at. It's just athletic competition. Which before we get to the main event, we have a comment from Jesse who says, "Who would you rather watch? Josh Barnett versus Cain Velasquez in UFC or in Bloodsport?" Hashtag free Cain, first off. And for me, I actually think the auspices of Bloodsport will be a little bit more free in terms of confines than the UFC is. And unfortunately, not to read the tea leaves too much, right? But Cain was essentially released from the UFC, I believe, right before the pandemic. So I want to say 2018, right? And Josh Barnett, I'm not speaking out of school. Just Google, his relationship with the UFC. I don't think we'll see either man in the UFC anytime soon, but I do think it would be perfect for Bloodsport. Two former UFC World Heavyweight Champions who have wrestling credo to get it done in a no rope ring. I'm in. Sign me up.
Sure. I mean, I'm not familiar with Cain Velasquez at all, but I guess for a few people who are fans, I think that maybe that's possibility, something that can happen in the future. And I'm sure fans of Cain Velasquez would like to maybe see that. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, well, at the moment he's in jail. There's a whole thing about the molestation of his kid, and he's like, "Oh, well, you molest my kid, I'm coming after you." And
Or,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
that's heavy stuff.
heavy, 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 heavy. So just saying. So um, there's a lot to make that happen. But if for fantasy booking, I would rather Cain Velasquez, Josh Barnett happen in the Bloodsport ring.
Yeah.
Just saying. Yeah. So the main events of the evening, we have Japanese legend, and that terminology gets used way too liberally. But in terms of Minoru Suzuki, him and Funaki starting Pancrase that launched the careers of Boz Rutan, Josh Barnett, and a litany of others, right? And Minoru Suzuki is the final boss to none other than Chris, the Dirty Daddy Dickinson, current uh, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. Jesus Louises. This again, if you follow the trials and tribulations of Chris Dickinson through Bloodsport, I mean, it's just him going basically being an opening match, right? To now him main eventing, and he's been in there with some of the all time greats, right?
Mhm.
The Barnetts. He's trained with Barnett. He's done everything that he's needed to do to face a legend like Minoru Suzuki, and obviously Minoru Suzuki is everything. Just there's not one thing that Minoru Suzuki is bad at, other than maybe like I don't know if he's a nice person, but he scares the shit out of me. So he gets an A plus. That's a 5 star right there. He scares the shit out of me. There's nobody that can scare the shit out of me more than Minoru Suzuki. He's just a different breed. But again, Suzuki and none other than Chris Dickinson.
Dickinson. Yeah.
Yeah, these two. My goodness, what it you wanted kicks, you wanted punches, you wanted open hand chops, forearm chops, like all of it, suplexes. This had everything. This had everything you needed out of it. And it's wild to me, right? In terms of Minoru Suzuki, right? At 52, 53 years old, right? That he's still arguably one of the top wrestlers in the world today because he can make so much out of so little. The way he looks, the way he can basically emote his emotions in the ring, right? Even the Casa Nina Ray song, right? Like there's an ambiance in the room. You and I have experienced it live, right? everybody's clapping and whatever, and there's
Right.
something that happens, there's some energy that happens, right? Anytime that, he mouths off to whoever's opponent because they slapped him or whatever, you don't have to understand Japanese one iota. you know Minoru Suzuki's gonna fuck you up. Like
Yeah.
that's just it. um and this is every bit of it, which made the win for Dickinson that much more. Obviously, catch wrestling legend, pro wrestling legend, like anything combat sports, Minoru Suzuki has done in one form or facet in his legendary career of sorts. And again, for Dickinson to come back after a near career threatening injury with his hips and everything, right? And this is what you get, right? There was a lot of things that he could have capitalized, right? His upward trajectory was never brighter, and then he gets injured, right?
Yeah.
And
That sucks. Like to get injured when you're on your highest, but then there's a reward. And that reward for Dickinson is Suzuki. And I think anybody who gets in the ring with Suzuki, I think they are having a ball, because some people it is a dream to fight Suzuki, and some others there's opportunities to fight him, because that means you have something. There's something about you where they want to put you in the match with this guy. And Suzuki, legend, 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 legend. And um I really am happy for Dickinson that he got this opportunity, because it shows that I feel like him, Dickinson and AJ Gray, I feel like between those two, well, both of them, I feel are, and of course Nick Gage, but I feel like all those three guys are the top guys for GCW. They're the top guys in GCW. Um, and Dickinson's getting this great opportunity, and I think it will showcase a lot of people what Dickinson can do, besides just wrestling. But also, Dickinson's a huge dude. He's huge. He's a huge buff man. But so is Suzuki at his age as well. And it's amazing to see how people can go, no matter what size you are, what age you are. At the same time, Dickinson is getting put over, and that is phenomenal in my opinion. And I think the storyline goes with, because him and Starboy Charlie were partnering up, and then things happened to Dickinson, then it happened to Charlie, and then now Dickinson is back and Charlie is recovering, but it's now showcasing Dickinson as a single competitor. And I think overall this is really good for Dickinson's career.
no, absolutely. And you were talking about the opportunity that Dickinson was given with Suzuki. Well, he made the most of that opportunity, right? The final stanza of the match was essentially Minoru Suzuki falling prey to Dickinson's brainbuster. And one of the stiffest looking brainbusters that I've ever seen, right? And much like, competitors of, the previous fights at Bloodsport 8, guess what? He doesn't, a brainbuster is not enough. I'm going to clobber the heck out of Minoru Suzuki. I'm not giving him a chance to get out, because there's 30 years of combat sports experience, at the very least. If I let this person up, he will lay waste to me. We're not just talking about my career ending. If Suzuki
Right.
gets up after the wrestler, we're talking about my life ending
Right.
if Suzuki gets a hold of it, right?
Yeah.
He's forgot more moves than he actually has in his arsenal, right? So with Dickinson got him like almost a rabid dog and started elbowing the heck out of Suzuki, to the point where the referee, another great call, right, saw that Suzuki wasn't intelligently defending himself, and he called for
Mm-hmm.
the match. Now Suzuki would have told you, hey, you're not gonna get Minoru Suzuki to admit that he gave up, that admit that he quit, especially not the 2022 era Suzuki. That's just not going to happen, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the advocate for Suzuki in this particular instance was the referee, and the referee did a great job, because again,
Yes.
I mean, the amount of force that was generated by Dickinson's elbows, right, and forearms that he was laying waste to. We might not even see Suzuki after. They might have been like literally peeling him off the mat, because I think Dickinson would have probably embedded Minoru Suzuki, and that's saying a lot, in the mat with those forearms. But this was a great call, a great match, and I mean, to me, it got a standing ovation. We got all the "this is awesome" chants, all of the relics that you see at an ardent MMA, or not MMA, but a indie wrestling match, right? That you would see
Yeah.
maybe on a Young Bucks or a Lucha Brothers on and everything, and you got to see it in not that, right? I don't think there was one flip other than maybe Jack Cartwheel's. I mean, not Jack Cartwheel, but Ninja Mac's capoeira kick to Yuya, right?
Mhm.
This was the nice, like, I guess, cherry, the proverbial cherry, bloody cherry, to put on top of a Bloodsport Sunday. Um,
Yeah.
my goodness. And not just to Dickinson and Suzuki, but every competitor on this Bloodsport card. I want to see more of you, and I want to see more of you in Bloodsport,
Uh-huh.
But by saying that, that also might close the doors. If you're running the same roster, might close the door to other opportunities. But I'm looking forward to the future, right?
Yeah.
A future that could be not just this roster that appeared on Bloodsport 8, but any new competitors that may come around come Bloodsport 9, and what that happens, and all being almost like the the proverbial playground of the War Master Josh Barnett, and seeing who he can put where with who, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So, Anissa, obviously, we can find you on bodyslam.net. I've linked your contact info in the bio, but I've done it once, but it bears repeating. Where can they find you? On the Facebook, on the Instagram, on the Twitter?
Yeah, you can follow me on all socials at Anissa Barr with 3 R's. Um, just 3 R's. And yeah, on Instagram and Twitter, and that's where you can find me. Some cool stuff is happening soon. My own podcast is coming out, but yeah, I'll announce all that soon. But overall, yeah, follow me on socials.
Yeah, and I'm According to Woods, and we thank you for joining us here on According to Woods, a special edition of According to Woods that was both on the According to Woods main page, as well as powered by bodyslam.net. Shout out to bodyslam.net and the Grappling Network. Thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Anissa, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Yes.
Heck yeah. So be like Anissa and subscribe to the podcast. And if you don't believe me, you don't believe Anissa, and I don't know why you wouldn't, well, here's Bloodsport 8 competitor Zeta Zhang to help convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods YouTube.